Chapter 62. The next almost 300 years. Ever since Emily's historic landmark legislation, the Durts had slowly eased into the peaceful lifestyle they had always been destined for. Now they could practice openly, with less fear of insane jail sentences, lifestyle profiling, and discrimination. The police had relaxed, turning biometrics and computational crime prediction towards actual bad actors. And families could finally get back to more mundane activities. They were no longer required to skulk in the shadows and cover up their production methods or consumption habits. Parents taught kids the pros and cons of everything they consumed, food included. Alkaloids and other actives were extracted safely and cleanly on the same kitchen counter where the crust was cut off of PB&Js. Just as kids learned why it wasn't wise to take any sacred herbs until they had developed a healthy understanding and respect for them. And even then, usually not until they were adults on average. With Durts' law, they could also share their lifestyles openly on the internet for the first time, with less of a paranoid and at times militant edge. No more hands-only instructional vids or blurred faces. It was on and poppin', as they used to say. Eventually, they were gifted a rare manuscript in their tireless search for truth and wisdom, penned by the Adepts of Thoreau, from a Durt family living in the Basque country. Finally, the term navigator awoke from its long hibernation, becoming part of the Durt lexicon. As their culture evolved over the years, an uncountable number of 10 formulas and protocols were inevitably concocted. All this research and self-experimentation revealed a few fundamental truths. Some things, like stacking, were better done in an order tailored to the individual's unique brain chemistry. Even though the stacks and individual metabolisms varied, an entire session was usually 8 to 12 hours, and that was without the black seed or other modifiers. So if you're going to do a complete run or staging of the 10, you had better begin at the ass crack of dawn, or you might end up with too little or too much energy at bedtime. Sleep was sacred to Durts, after all, as most practiced lucid dreaming, extending their magical practices into that limitless space. And the timing of it all was a skill unto itself, and sometimes took an entire lifetime to master, sometimes more than one. Anything more potent than a walking around dose of the 10 was challenging to maintain daily, and usually reserved for celebrations, wedding nights, or moments of heavy grief. But because it was the 10, it could also transform the mood of all these things. If the Durt's intention wasn't clear as fuck, to quote the late, great Rulux. And even at the best of times, if things headed south, it took discipline and skill to turn it around. Sometimes the water was a still lake. Sometimes the water was 100-foot-tall ship killer. But always the only way out was through. And as the Durts began sorting the signal from all the ancient noise of religions, philosophy, esoterica, and literature, a set of universal guiding principles emerged. Their soft power rebranding bonanza that followed turned out to be amazingly successful. Violence among Durts who weren't provoked to defend themselves became very rare, and once they weren't being beaten by the proverbial Reggie stick, it was almost all carrot, baby. Yeah, they dressed funkily and talked about plant spirits and machine elves at family cookouts. But they earned. Durts innovated whenever possible, and wherever they were cast on the earth's surface, Durts thrived and grew like kudzu. Plus, if they happened to show up in your little podunk, recession-crushed town, you would succeed as well. Shit got better, sure, with the help of the tech, but primarily by good old-fashioned sweat equity, hard work, Reggies and Durts shoulder to shoulder planting gardens, volunteering, and keeping out dangerous elements. The same was also valid for inner city locations where fresh food and healthcare were scarce. The dirt settled down on your block and your community. Soon you had bustling farmers markets, stocked produce bins, affordable community clinics, and a sharp reduction in psychotic drug dealers. Hey, Rulux don't fuck around with no fuck-arounds. You feel me? Using these social and environmental stewardship templates, the Dirts evolved over the centuries, generation after generation, transforming their successes and, yes, failures into a deep culture. They were a people now, an all-inclusive global tribe, laying down some serious history. Then, one day, all that history came knocking on the front door of Casa Sumatzcucu in the little town of Juniper Fire, Florida.